there's all these stories about, guys over in Macedonia who are running these fake news sites.
Number 24 is Content Farms in Macedonia.
Бидејќи ако се направи грешка, таа ќе биде кобна. Нема враќање назад.
So Europe need to remain more sexy lady in the world.
Ајде, мајката!
Господа ја чува Македонија и низините граѓани.
Will VMRO join the current Macedonian government? Will DUI leave the Macedonian government? Will there be constitutional changes to suit the childish demands of the Bulgarians and placate their friends in the US State Department and EU foreign policy institutions? Will there be early elections? Will Bulgaria ask for more and more and more? The answer to that last question is, of course. We'll discuss all this and more on this episode of the Macedonian Content Farmers podcast. I'm Jason Miko, coming to you from the foot of the Catalina Mountains in Oro Valley, Arizona.
And this is Cvetin in Skopje, Macedonia.
How you doing?
Good, a little tired, but we had to get down and do a podcast because a lot of things are happening since our last one.
Yes, and this is just to set the level set, as they say in McKinsey, or whatever, episode 157 of the Macedonian Content Farmers podcast, and today, it's actually the middle of June, June 15th, Thursday, at camp. I think it feels like June just started, and now we're halfway through June. It's just kind of bizarre. But yes, there's a lot going on in Macedonia, and it's very confusing, and I think you're going to do most of the talking here, but there's lots of machinations between SDSM and DUI and VMRO throwing the international mix and the Bulgarian stuff, and you've got yourself one hot mess. Looks like, so Miskoski and Tace met in private, I guess, last week, to try and hammer out some things.
Last week.
Last week.
Yeah, last week.
Yeah, today's the 15th, so yeah. So what's going on?
Yeah, everything is up in arms. Everything is on the table. All sorts of negotiations. Everybody is resigning. Everybody is leaving the government. Everybody wants to join the government. So we are getting close to a deadline. We're now talking weeks in which we need to have the Bulgarian amendments in parliament. If not, we will be late to adopt the amendments until November, when Albania would, we are told, we are warned, we are threatened, would resume its EU accession talks, and we will be left out in the cold and, possibly facing all sorts of trouble and uncertainty, as the German, the American interlocutors sent to this country warned us. So the deadline is close, and VMRO, holding a comfortable position. We are not part of this mess. The government negotiated this with the Bulgarians. The government took on itself an obligation to amend the constitution and include the Bulgarian nation in the constitution at the start of our accession talks. This requires 81 votes in parliament. The government barely has 61 to survive. It cannot dream of getting to the number. With the Albanian opposition there, they would still be short 10 votes. So VMRO were saying, we don't care about this. It's not my circus, not my monkeys. You figure this out. But the diplomats were pressuring. We had the American ambassador, we had Senator Murphy, we had, Escobar.
Yeah.
All calling VMRO out, while Kovacevski was meeting with Blinken. So, pretty high-level American threats and warnings against VMRO. And eventually VMRO said, okay, let's give it a shot. Let's see if we can negotiate something. Because on the other hand, VMRO has the prospect of riding its opposition to this latest concession, which should only begin the process of Macedonian EU accession. It will not end it, so it will just be the start of our troubles with regard to the future Bulgarian demands. In the future, Bulgaria would have this constitutional legal guarantee to make further demands of greater elevation of the Bulgarian minority and expanding it in Macedonia on the account of the Macedonian nation. So VMRO can ride this to electoral victory, but they also have the threat that if they remain opposed, then the government can start arresting them with the full support of the U.S. Embassy. I'm sure they're being warned that this would happen. They could win elections next year, but then no Albanian the U.S. Embassy can tell the Albanian parties not to touch them with a stick, so practically ensuring another SDSM Albanian coalition with VMRO the largest party in parliament, but still in the opposition. They faced the threat that there will be massive fraud in the elections, as well as that all the Albanian parties will team up, or most of them will team up with SDSM, and in pre-election coalition. So in this way, practically form one huge electoral juggernaut. So VMRO might possibly not even win the elections. We could possibly be the second largest group in parliament. So it's a good position to be in, but it's not great position. So they said, okay, let's negotiate, and everything exploded after the meeting. So VMRO said we want two things, two type of guarantees for the Bulgarian deal. One, practically from Bulgaria, that we adopt the amendments, but they are made to go into effect at the end of our accession talks, not at the start, which means that Bulgaria would have an incentive not to block us down the road. It will not have this legal right to issue additional demands for public sector jobs for Bulgarians, public school education in Bulgarian, holidays, in Bulgarian cultural events funded by the government. All of this, I mean, these are not crazy demands, but the issue is that, as VMRO says, there is zero reciprocity on the other side.
Right.
We want the same for Macedonians in Bulgaria. So this is the first demand, that Bulgaria agrees and the whole of EU agrees that we have this at the end. We make this big concession at the end of the talks to avoid turning them into a nightmare. And also they said we want guarantees from the European Union that in the end we will have the Macedonian identity guaranteed, the Macedonian language becoming an EU official language. We have something in the sense that the German parliament is today adopting a resolution saying that they recognize the Macedonian history, identity, nation, language, and call on us to make the amendments, but on Bulgaria to stop blocking us. The American ambassador and the British ambassador are making these clumsy statements in Macedonian saying that they recognize the language. Something in this line, but VMRO wants something more concrete from the European Union, something in writing. So these are the demands. And these are okay. VMRO has made these demands before. Where the thing got messy is where VMRO said we do not trust this government to be able to negotiate with the Bulgarians or the EU. They are very weak. They cave on everything. Whenever the internationals tell them something, they immediately accept it. So we want in the government. And they say, and not only that, we want to do it out of the government. So they say we form this grand coalition between VMRO and SDSM, which was discussed for months now, that apparently the Zaev faction in SDSM wants to do this, wants to put an end to this unprecedented strengthening of DUI, the other Albanian parties, at the expense of the Macedonian parties in the government. They want them cut down to size a little. Now VMRO says, okay, we will join the government. We would have DUI out of the government, and this government would then organize the elections, negotiate with Bulgaria. It would probably, I guess it would last until there were so many combinations and then replies. It all becomes a blur at one point. But they were practically, VMRO said, we want in the government, unless Bulgaria agrees that we postpone this constitutional amendment, then we score a big victory. But if we enter into these long, protracted negotiations with them, with EU, changing the conditions of our EU accession, then we want to be part of the government. And they were trying to set DUI up. VMRO has a theory that if DUI is out of the government, with all their hugely accumulated power in the public sector, in the government, that VMRO currently, they keep changing their Albanian partner. Currently, they are focused on this rival faction in DUI, led by officials such as Musa Jaferi, who was close to VMRO in the past, and as well as the Besa party. So VMRO are thinking we'll break DUI into two pieces and then we'll empower another opposition party of the Albanians. So we'll divide practically the Albanian camp in 5, and it will be easier for us. Next election, even if we are the largest party but without full majority, but we'll have 5 Albanian partners to choose from. And then we will be in a very comfortable position to take 2 of them maybe, and then keep splitting those that refuse to join us. And we can restore some of this immense lost ground that Macedonians lost to Albanians in the government, in public sector hiring, in business linked to the government, in the Bechtel deal. I mean, having DUI, the Albanian party, negotiate this huge infrastructure deal, and not the ostensibly Macedonian coalition partner. So this was VMRO's offer. But the wheels are quickly coming off.
Okay, that's a good summary. You said one of the demands was that DUI leave the government. Did DUI respond to that, or were there any?
So both DUI and SDSM immediately responded that they accept everything, but they also they're ignoring the earlier conditions VMRO made about guarantees, about and especially this about postponing the implementation of the constitutional amendment. So DUI said, okay, fine, we resign tomorrow. A day later, they even said, we will give you our position of prime minister, because DUI expects to name a prime minister in the
last
6 months before
last 100
the
days,
elections.
right?
Yeah. So we will give you the Albanian prime minister. We will make Mickovski prime minister, but we want you to first vote for the amendments, and they go into force immediately. So they're trying to play dumb that they did not hear this this main request from VMRO about guarantees from Bulgaria and from the EU.
Right.
SDSM says the same. SDSM said, fine, we will let you join the government. We'll give you half of our seats. We would like to see DUI remain in the government for stability reason, whatever. But we will give you 5 of our departments that SDSM holds. DUI allows SDSM to hold 10 departments now. SDSM, we will give you 5. And then later said, we will throw in the position of prime minister. We are giving you the position of prime minister to Mickovski. But again, they said, and we will also agree to postpone the constitutional amendments, but they say to the point of this second government conference with the EU. So again, they're trying to use all this EU jargon and complicate things. But this means, again, at the start of the accession talks, not at the end of the accession talks. So both parties say we agree, but we do not, we will not, but not to join forces and go against the Bulgarians and the EU and make demands.
Right. Well, a couple of thoughts. First of all, on as a matter of just pure politics. So I think I'm encouraged, actually. What VMRO has done was present a number of other options, and the government has reacted to those in various ways, accepting some, at least verbally. This is whereas, a couple of months ago, it was the government that said, no, you vote for this, for the Bulgarians in the constitution, the constitutional changes, full stop, then we can talk. It's kind of like what, Joe Biden said to the Republican Party here, you bring me a clean debt increase bill, and then we'll talk about other things. And the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, said, no, we're going to pass our own bill, and then you're going to negotiate with us. And Joe Biden negotiated, and both sides gave up something, both sides got something. That's the way it's supposed to work in a legislative situation. and in a properly functioning government. And here it looks like Miskovsky's finally said, yeah, here are some things. Now, I think the Croatian model has gone by the wayside at this point, but they've been creative and come up with some other ideas, and the government has responded and said yes, even though it's all a hot mess, to your point. And who knows, round and round and round she goes, and where she stops, nobody knows. How it's going to pan out, nobody knows. But at least there's movement, I think. And that's the way it's supposed to work. The process of legislation is messy. The old adage that you never want to see sausage or laws made. It's both. It's an ugly process in both. But it's better than the government saying to the opposition, to VMRO, saying, no, you're going to vote for these constitutional changes, and then maybe we'll talk down the road. So I think everybody recognizes, look, let's be honest. Look, here's the deal. The U.S. ambassador who is the U.S. ambassador who's in Washington, D.C. right now, the EU ambassador who's doing something down in Struga right now, all of the EU ambassadors, etc., everybody who's at the Prespa.
No, Struga is the large Prespa conference.
Yes, we were going to.
They were supposed to have a lot of power brokers from the EU come and pressure this deal on us, but apparently nobody came.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, we can talk about that in a second. Yeah, the Prespa Forum dialogue. I wanted to comment on their stupid concept note, but all of these people know that the Bulgarians are going to ask for more, no matter what happens. Whether the amendment to the constitution is changed or not, Bulgarians are always going to ask for more and more and more. As I said in the opening monologue, that's just the way it works. And the U.S., the State Department, the EU foreign policy institutions are going to play dumb and say, okay, it's just one more thing, and it just will never end. Again, I've said this many times in this podcast, the apocryphal story of J. Paul Getty, the world's first dollar billionaire in the 1970s, and a reporter asked him, Mr. Getty, how much is enough? Just $1 more. How many concessions are enough, dear Bulgaria? Just one concession more, and it's not going in. I like what apparently there's a story here about Branko Gruevski, the journalist who was mocking Bujar Osmani about. He said, "What a stupid spin," about Osmani saying there will be no more condition. Bulgaria won't be able to impose any more conditions, and Branko Gruevski said, "What a stupid spin." So
No, I didn't.
Yeah, he said he even mocked the airline that was established between Macedonia and Bulgaria that lasted for about a month and was totally, there were no economics behind it, so it fell by the wayside, of course. So but anyway, so.
No, but the internationals, they tell us that now is the time, this is the perfect time because of Ukraine. They say that we did not have any interest in the EU for enlargement, but now Ukraine happened, now they need to bring the Ukraine to the EU, and this is where we can profit. So you mentioned the Getty example. I use this example of after we have been lied to so many times in the past, of this Nigerian prince, who offers you money, and we all know it's a scam, right?
Yeah.
But then there is a cartoon of a African kid sitting at a computer, and there is actually a pile of money around him, and he says, "I don't understand. I have this money. I need to move it out of the country." And I keep telling people, "It's free money. Just take it. Just keep it for a few days, and I'll give you half." And nobody responds. So what if we're asked to believe this time that now they're really that the Macrons and the Dutch, they have all lined up, and the Germans and the Italians, they're all eager to have us in, and that this is really the last concession, and that they have a new government in Bulgaria in place, and it's, Slavi is out, and Karakachanov is out, and Borisov is out, and under charges apparently, and they have some very pro-European appointed lady, and the other grouping, which is hardline on Macedonia, the President Radev group, is practically feuding with this Frankenstein government they have set up there, so that everything has lined up, right? Mm-hmm. We're told that everything has lined up perfectly, and we just have to make the small concession. Yeah. But we know, even if it's true and we start the process, we're still looking into 10 years down the line, and Bulgaria would have maybe not now, but in a few years would again have an incentive to use all this against us, and it can all go badly again. But also, it's very possible it doesn't get off the ground. We just had another Bulgarian club president beaten up, and this time it's a guy who is a Muslim Macedonian. So even in Bulgaria, people are saying, okay, yeah, but the name, it's Turkish, the last name is Turkish. Is this the guy we had? We have as a Bulgarian, leading a Bulgarian club. And the guy who attacked him, if you can trust the police, which I don't really, but it's an Albanian guy from this lawless village of Veleshta.
Oh.
And so this guy says, I was beaten up and he was telling me, you filthy Bulgarian. So this would make sense if it was a Macedonian beating a Macedonian who identifies as Bulgarian, but we have an Albanian beating a Muslim Macedonian who identifies as Bulgarian after Bulgaria has started very quickly issuing citizenships, and even gave an apartment to this guy who was, legit beaten up, this first guy. But these things would happen down the line, and, we will have more and more trouble in this 10-year process of accession talks. 7 is the most optimistic scenario being sold to us now by the government. So even if really everything is perfect now, there is no guarantee that it will last for long.
No, it's like one of my favorite breweries here in Tucson, the oldest craft brewery in the state of Arizona, Barrio Brewing. You go inside and there's this big neon sign that says free beer tomorrow. Go in tomorrow. Yeah, I want my free beer. No, it's tomorrow. So,
Great.
Yeah, on your Bulgarian incident there, it's kind of funny. It's like the mainstream media here now blaming Hispanics and blacks for being white supremacists. So it's
Yeah.
it's all mixed up. I mean, this is what happens when you start, really elevating identity politics to the supreme level. But back. Let's pivot back over to the what is it called? The Prespa Forum dialogue, which is wholly paid for, I think, by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and probably a couple of embassies.
I'm sure.
So they're having their 5th confab down at I guess it's Lake Prespa. I don't even know where it actually.
I think it's Struga now
Struga?
for some reason.
Okay.
I don't know.
Maybe it is in
I think
Struga.
it's Struga.
Yeah.
Maybe I got it wrong.
And their title is
Even the location is fake.
the title of this thing is Widened European Family by 2030 Mission, and then imperim, IM, and then possible ? So, is it mission?
Oh.
Yeah. It's pathetic. So, although that does speak to your 7-year, 2030, your 7-year.
Yeah.
But I love on their concept note, if you read down to the very bottom, the last line is united in diversity. Let's move processes forward so we can all rise onward. Well, what that means, united in diversity, is we're all diverse, and you therefore must agree with us so that we can all rise onward. It's just kind of this is why, going back to what I said a few moments ago about the idea of the government or the governing party or whatever wants this and insists on the opposition delivering it. The opposition says no, we're going to negotiate, and then both sides give up a little bit, and that's the way it's supposed to work. And this Prespa Forum dialogue, I mean, it's the whole thing with the so-called Prespa agreement is that Greece said, no, you will deliver all of these things to us. And yeah, sure, there was a few window dressing things that Greece, quote unquote, gave up. I'm using air quotes. But no, Macedonia gave up everything, almost everything.
Yeah.
And now they're giving up the rest of it to the Bulgarians. So
And this increased Bulgaria's appetite because they did not even, it created the dispute because Bulgaria was not even expecting that it would get something like this. But they saw that Macedonia elected a government of people who were literally throwing paint on our monuments and declaring that we do not need history, we just need EU integration, and we would accept demands from any EU member state. From the member state of Greece, if she has historic nationalist demands from us. And Bulgarians said, sure, we will never have this type of this group of idiots in power in Macedonia again. Let's use it while it lasts. Let's take advantage of them.
Yeah. So.
I mean, it makes perfect sense that they would try to
Yeah.
to use the opportunity. But we had a situation. So practically after another thing happened practically. So VMRO made their demands. SDSM and DUI immediately said we accept these demands, except that they lied about the extent of the demands, the guarantees which VMRO demanded. And then they immediately launched a huge PR operation, using some of the people who split from Gruevski in the past months here, especially after the local elections. So like this media outlet Infomax, the group around Stevcha, Kimovska, it's the same group actually. The Levica party, which is trying to attack VMRO from the right on this issue. And Kovacevski, the prime minister, immediately said the big takeaway from this meeting is not that we agreed that DUI is out, that VMRO will be in the government, that we cannot negotiate with Bulgaria, that we need the opposition, that we are feckless, weak, and compromised. But he said the big takeout is that VMRO finally agreed to amend the constitution, and we are welcome that they changed their position. They used to say that this will lead to immediate Bulgarization of the country, of the Macedonians, and now they saw the error of their ways and they have come to our position. And Levica immediately said, well, this means that we are the only opposition in the country. SDSM, DUI, and VMRO are part of the whole group, one grouping. And VMRO were visibly taken aback by the ferocity of this attack from the right. They are now doubting that when Zaev was approaching them and telling them, listen, this with the Albanians has gone overboard, let's unite. I will take down Kovacevski and restore myself as leader of the party. You join me in a coalition and we will have a large Macedonian-led coalition and we will kick DUI out of the government. We will take back what they have stolen in power. But now VMRO thinks, okay, maybe this was all a ruse. Maybe they were really trying to, just like we are trying to kick DUI out of the government and provoke a fight between all the Albanian parties for their spoils. It seems that they want to drag us into the government. Then, this government could collapse immediately. VMRO has a very bad experience when they were last allowed in this technical government before the 2020 elections. Zaev did not first refuse to accept VMRO's first choice for interior minister on flimsy grounds. Then he forced, they voted to remove the second minister VMRO appointed, Rashila Mizrahi, the Jewish lady, because she did not use she used the logo with the name Republic of Macedonia, not North Macedonia. But practically, they did not honor their agreement. VMRO says, okay, they will let us join. They will have all these astroturf, the right-wing movements who are trying to nip some of our popularity, some of our share of votes in the conservative Macedonia. And this is a hugely unpopular issue. I mean, we had like 80% of Macedonians opposed to this. It's crazy. We had a poll. Which country do you consider the biggest enemy of Macedonia? 60-something% said Bulgaria, even though Kosovo attacked us twice. Greece dragged us in these negotiations, tried to destroy us for 30 years. Serbia was obviously the hegemon, doing all sorts of damage to us as a country for decades. And, people, there was a big well of distrust toward Bulgaria before, but now with the veto, with the blockade, 60+% chose Bulgaria. So it's a hugely unpopular request, and VMRO want to capitalize on opposing it. But they say we will be lured into the government. They might kick us out in a few months after we sign on to the amendments, right? They might launch some type of criminal charges against us, whatever, and then SDSM and DUI will say, well, we did not know they're so corrupt. They also broke their principles. They signed the Bulgarian treaty, whatever. So they might, we have to kick them out of the government because they're so corrupt. So yeah, VMRO, now think that this was all an elaborate trap to get them into the government, and then chew them out after they sign the treaty and lose their popularity with the conservative public. So now VMRO is back to a position saying, okay, you either accept the proposal that we made as we made it, or we have early elections or no deal. And the SDSM says, okay, then we'll go back to our plan B, which is we're going back to the good days of Prespa, arresting members of parliament, blackmailing them, bribing them. They would now need about 10 members of parliament to, practically force. Mickovsky said that if somebody from this current camp votes for constitutional amendments, he would resign, even if one person votes for this. So, one, I guess, could be achievable. I'm sure a lot of money would be put on the table. SDSM are leaking, or, people in between the two camps are leaking that SDSM have approached Nikola Gruevski, promising to help him, to drop all charges against him if he finds them the votes in parliament. Now we're back to Johannes Hahn's request that we find the votes in parliament using Balkan tactics, by hook and crook, arrest their children, put them in prison, keep the member of parliament in prison, and release him on the day of the vote. It's one thing that happened is that might have damaged VMRO is that the fact that Mickovsky said that we will vote for the amendments at the end of the process, and this key distinction is being omitted. If VMRO members of parliament are thinking to take the money and run, and Mickovsky has been losing coalition partners and allies after the local elections. No, the Albanians, we don't even count them. You can't really put faith in the Albanian parties, but he was losing people he helped elect, like Daniel Arsovska, like some lower level, local officials. VMRO lost practically the mayoral position in Skopje, the mayoral position in Karpoš, which is a big district, and they lost the council in Bitola, again with, it's a outside party which turned their backs on them, but still, they had a coalition, now it's broken. So if there is a group in parliament which might be considering, I'll take like 1.5 million from the US Embassy, I'm speculating on the number, and I'll vote for this and then move out of the country. They might say, well, listen, but Mickovsky said that it's good, it's okay that we vote for this, only later, but they will say, listen, he said, we can vote for this, and I'm voting for this, and help the country open new accession talks, sacrifice myself for the country, now it's the moment, blah, 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 something like that. So they may have hurt themselves in this regard a little.
Well, we'll have to see. By the way, that was good explanation there, but I was going through the list of participants for the Prespa Forum Dialogue, and I came across...
You were not listening to me, you were Googling.
No, I was listening. No, I wasn't. I was scrolling, not Googling.
But this is going to be on the exam.
Well, that's for our listeners.
Okay.
Harold Schenker. I haven't heard. I forgot he was a lot. I forgot he still existed. Number of progressive leftist failures from the past that apparently are still around, and he looks like a thug in this picture.
Yeah,
but I can't find.
So Haki is their big guest.
Who?
Haki is their big guest. He's their big speaker.
Yeah.
Who will get VMRO to compromise on this issue.
Escobar is coming. Phil Rieger, who works for Madeleine Albright's group.
Somebody said Phil has canceled,
oh, really?
and even Escobar.
Escobar is probably needed in Kosovo right now. So.
Yeah, we have a lot of trouble.
Interesting to see as a quick side note, the escalating feud between Edi Rama and Albin Kurti. So.
Yeah, he's practically, this is a very interesting situation. He's practically taking Kosovo over. He wants to quash the Kosovar sovereignty even more than the Serbs do right now, because he says, it's okay, we take over Kosovo. Albania takes over Kosovo. It's actually a very, very interesting development.
It is. You know, and for those who poo-poo the idea of Greater Albania, well, don't be so quick to poo-poo the idea. So, although to the point that he wants to take over, don't forget Albin Kurti, who is the prime minister of what many consider to be an independent state, Kosovo. He votes in the Kosovo elections, but he also votes in the elections in the Republic of Albania, which is a very distinct and separate state. You can't when the prime minister of a country or the president of a country or any elected leader of a country is voting in the elections of another country, I think that automatically disqualifies them for any public position whatsoever. I don't care how anti-corruption Kurti is or anything else. He gave up his right to be a elected leader when he decides, yeah, I can vote in several different countries. Sorry, doesn't work that way. So
I'm surprised he doesn't have a Macedonian passport.
Yeah, and I'm sure the government of Macedonia would be more than happy to give him a passport. So if he asked.
Yeah.
So.
But listen, if we reject this deal, it's very likely that and Serbia gets its Republika Srpska in North Kosovo. It's little statelet in North Kosovo. It's very likely that the Albanians their next position will be, okay, well, we are getting nowhere with Macedonia in terms of EU integration. They're gambling away another opportunity. They want to have us under another 10, 11 years of Gruevski. So we will now form our own group in West and North Macedonia. If we accept the demands, I mean, doesn't mean that the Albanian push to grab territory in Macedonia will end and they will be satisfied, but it will be a different form. But if this deal does not happen, then it will be probably a more brutal, immediate set of demands.
It doesn't surprise me. I think a lot of the mindset and worldview of the current Albanian leadership in Macedonia comes from the socialist, far leftist worldviews. Obviously, Ali Ahmeti is a Marxist-Leninist, unrepentant, unreformed, but the other leaders as well. And a hallmark of leftist progressive thinking is we must have whatever we want right here, right now. And they don't take time. They don't think that time should be taken for things to develop. I mean, as conservatives, we often get accused as conservatives, and this is a conservative podcast, of being against change. That's not true. Change is inevitable. You cannot stop it. It comes. But we believe in slow change. And in asking, it's the Chesterton's fence. Our old friend G.K. Chesterton, who gives the story of two men walking in a forest, and they come along this old stone wall that is partially broken down, and there's moss growing over it, and bushes, and all kinds of vegetation. And one man says, what is this here for? We must tear it down. It's in the way. The other man says, hang on. We need to figure out why it was built in the first place. There might be a purpose for it, and then we will go forward based on that knowledge. Yep. And that is what our friends on the left, the progressives, etc., are always intent on doing, is tearing down things and rushing forward. And the Albanian political parties in Macedonia certainly share that aspect with them, and that they're not willing to wait. If the elected ethnic Albanian elected leaders in Macedonia are intent on creating separate enclaves in Macedonia of ethnic Albanian areas, which is almost impossible to do, frankly, because go with me on this, because Macedonia isn't in the EU by 2030, etc. I'm sorry, that is no reason whatsoever. Macedonia is integrated.
No, that's no reason, but it will be the excuse.
Yeah, okay, yeah, but it's a poor excuse, and they should be called out and roundly criticized and stopped one way or the other by.
Our history teachers, when discussing World War II or World War I, they would love to make a distinction between povod I pričina, the reason and the cause of the war. And they would say like the excuse maybe and the reason for the war. They would say like the assassination of the Archduke is the excuse, but the cause was, and then they would say imperialist, blah blah stuff.
Well, again, that's each day, Macedonia is integrated more and more with Europe and the European Union. I mean, it is in Europe. It's European. Full stop. It always has been.
Yeah, of course.
But with the structures of the European Union, each day, each week, each month, more and more, they need to be satisfied with that. And if the progress towards being a quote-unquote EU member isn't achieved in 7 years, well, sorry, you're just going to have to wait, because they're, believe it or not, and this goes to the point, now I'm on a rant, this goes to the point that they're all a bunch of bloody narcissists, because they think that their interests are the only interests to be taken care of in Macedonia, that of the ethnic Albanian community, and there are other interests as well. Primarily that of, by the way, the Macedonians, as well as there's, by the way, there are other ethnic groups in Macedonia besides the bloody Albanians. And they don't take those into account whatsoever, because they're a bunch of bloody narcissists. End of rant.
Yeah, we were satisfied to be, outside of the EU. Under Gruevski would say, okay, you don't want to let us join, fine. We will find our own way. We will trace our own path. It would be nice if we could join NATO. And, all this came out the window with the Ukraine war, after which the US said, you're either with us or against us. And we will color revolution you if you only, if you hesitate even for a second. Now Macron is supposed to come to the country. So after this big German declaration, non-binding, of course, the State Department or the Congress is supposed to issue something like that. They issue these declarations in the Congress like candy. So then Macron is supposed to come at some point and say, and maybe reinforce this date 2030 to encourage us again to vote in favor of this. But he's also, again, talking about some light version of EU membership, like you don't get a commissioner, you don't get full voting rights in some matters, I don't know. So he may try to make this offer to us. But again, we are, it's inevitable that we will move in this direction of Albanian demands becoming territorial in nature. It's just a matter who will be left holding the bag when it happens, and who will be blamed for this. I mean, it's a small comfort for us who will probably be affected in a significant confrontation here, at least a low-level civil war like Northern Ireland in the future. But, to me, to you, it's obvious that SDSM making all these concessions with the national identity, even if it landed us into NATO, opened up this process of undermining the Macedonian nation as a construct, as a societal construct, as the kids now like to say, that everything is what is a Macedonian, what is a woman, what is a Bulgarian, and which is making us less safe than more safe, even though we are in NATO now. So to us, it's obvious that what SDSM did in 2001 and in 2015, 2017 will be the cause of this coming confrontation. But the excuse for the confrontation may be something that happens when VMRO takes power, either now in a grand coalition or after the elections. They may be even allowed to form a government for a short while with some of the smaller Albanian parties, but then they're knocked out at the first curve, and then with some form of violence, and then SDSM, DUI, their media, the international say, well, look, whenever we let VMRO take the reins, a war happens to their fault, not because we're causing it, with the Albanians, with the internationals in Pristina, Belgrade, Washington, Skopje, not we, the deep state in Macedonia, agents, etc., and prosecutors and media, but because VMRO is in power. That's how organically a war starts. And this might very well happen, that VMRO comes into power, and then 6 months, a year after, this territorial requests are put into effect, especially if in the meantime, as things are moving in Kosovo, and Serbia wants its part of Kosovo, and the Kosovars are left reeling and want to be compensated somewhere, and the Serbs will also want to be compensated. And Macedonia is just there.
Well,
No identity, no military, no Macedonian government, no.
oh, now that's now you're ending on a crushing morosity note, like Podorets and the commentary podcast. So,
Well, yeah, we're contractually obligated to do that.
all right, we'll see. It's we got lots of time ahead of us, I think, unless the second coming of Christ occurs first, which is always a possibility. But until then, we'll just keep following this, and if there's any developments, I guess, in the next week or two on this, one way or the other, we might have to have another quick podcast here. Although this one is turning out to be a regular length podcast, so that's fine. It was good.
Yeah.
It was fun. We had some laughs. We had some serious stuff. We had a nice rant from me. So hey.
Yeah. No, it was a major development, but I think now everybody will take it easy for a few weeks until the amendments are actually proposed, and then we'll see who gets bribed, who gets blackmailed, who
We're at the
will.
beginning of summer. School's
what
just
happens.
out. People are thinking of vacations. It's going to start getting hot. So yeah. We'll see. We'll follow it. We will. We provide our listeners with the service, Cvetin, and we're on top of it.
And then also the companies selling antidepressants with a valuable market of people who are interested in Macedonia. I don't know how big our listener base and people who are, and of them people who are actually emotionally invested in the country is, but we do our best to depress them every other week.
We sure have fun doing it, though.
Yeah. It's self-healing for us. True.
Exactly.
We're sharing our depression to others.
Misery loves company. All right, Cvetin, we'll probably talk again in the next week or two on this.
Absolutely. Take care, buddy.
Good talking to you.
You too.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.